Right, back with the MDS. Got both the power supplies back in. One here and one there, and I've also got the fan tray back in as well. Things to check at this point is the two fuses on the back. You might just be able to see the ends of them there. You should have a 3 amp in the 5 volt supply and a 1 amp in the plus minus 12 minus 10 volt supply, and they're anti-surge fuses. This is for 230 volt. If you're in the States, there'll be double that, because half the voltage, double the current. Right, okay. The first check I'm going to do is that all the grounds are actually common. As you remember, all the supplies are completely separate. So I've got the ground on one of the, that's on the plus 12. So let's try the minus supply ground here, and we have got 0 ohms. And we'll try the ground on the plus 5. Again, we've got 0 ohms. We'll try on the extender card I've got in here. Should have 0 there, hopefully. There we go. That one's 0. And there should be 1 on the end. That's great. Right, so all our grounds are pinned together. We don't want them floating about. You do have to be really careful. If your grounds aren't common, sort of bad things can happen. I had some trouble a few months back, and the drive that had all the grounds common on the drive and not on the power supply, and then picks another one up, and the grounds weren't common on the drive, and of course when I plugged it in, unfortunately the driver on the stepper motor floated just enough to turn all the stepper motor coils on, and it exceeded the package dissipation and fried it, which wasn't good. So yeah, always worth checking if you've got multiple supplies. They should all be pointed. Well, sorry, they should all be grounded at one point. In theory, that's the best possible scenario. But either way, however it's done, they must all be common. Right, so what we'll do next is check all the voltages. I've marked up on the extender card here where the voltages are. So I'll just turn it on. Right, we're running. As you can hear, the fans going. The first voltage we should see on these pins here are the 5 volt. There we go. Dodgy probe here, I think. There we go. And that should be 5 volt as well. Next to that we should see the 12 volt. There we go, that's 12 volt. Along here we should see the minus 10 volt, which we do, and the minus 12 volt, which we do, and finally on the end we should have another 5 volt. There we go. Some of these voltages are repeated on the other side of the card, but I can't reach around there, but I have checked them and they're all in the right place. I've got a little note of them here where all the supplies appear. Right, what I'm going to do now is set up the first card and we'll give it a test. Right, I've got the processor card set up in the extender card up here. Haven't put the processor in it because I don't want to risk it at this stage. So, you know, it's daft, you know, we're just testing to see if there might be a problem. Down here, if I just pan the camera down, I've got this meter here is measuring the current on the 12 volt, and the current clamp meter is measuring the current on the 5 volt. It's more than likely if there's going to be a problem, it's going to be on the 5 or the plus 12. That's why I've gone for those two. What I've done, I've gone through the reference manual and I've noted down what the typical currents are, the maximum currents. So if we exceed any of these currents, we'll know there's a problem on the board. And also I've got this sort of cheapy thermal imaging camera as well, so we can see if anything's getting stinking hot on the board as well, should the worst happen. Right, so what I'll do, I'll power it up and then we'll check the currents. Right, here we go. So we've got 1.8 amps on the 5 volt and we've got 50 milliamps on the plus 12. The figures are 2.4 amp typical on the 5 and 70 milliamp typical on the plus 12, so we're well within that, so it looks like we're safe. And let that run just for a few seconds, make sure it settles. Right, if we pan up to the board now, I mean obviously it looks like it's okay, we'll run the camera over it just for a bit of a giggle. There we go. There's a few little green spots here and there, but they're only about 24 degrees, so it looks fairly happy at the moment. There we go. Probably just make out the overlay of the ICs on there. Oh, there's a little red one there, look. It's 37, that one. Still nothing serious though. One more one there, which one was that one? That one's about 30. That looks fairly hopeful. Certainly nothing's going bright yellow anyway. Yeah, I think we're alright. So what I'll do, I'll run that for probably about 5 minutes. Obviously I'm not going to video 5 minutes of the ball sitting there getting warm, just to make sure everything's okay, and then we'll move on to the next one. Right, I've got the RAM card set up in the extender card now, so I'll power up and see what happens. Alright, all powered up. Looks like we've got about 0.9 of lamp on the 5 volt and about 60 milliamps on the 12. That 12 looks a bit low, but I presume that's because it's not actually running. Another thing to sort of watch when you're doing this sort of thing is your supply rails aren't dropping. If I just plug this smaller meter in, if I can manage to hold it up to the camera. Let's have a look. So we've got our -10, our -12, our +12, and somewhere down here we should have our 5 volt. There you go. Obviously if you lose any of your supply rails, or your supply rails start to drop, that's a clear indication that you've got a bit of a problem. Let's just bring up camera up to the card. Right, have a little look, see what the temperatures are like. Let's get the meter on. Right, here we go. The RAM looks very cool actually. It's really cool. All the RAM chips are on the right hand side of the board, so yeah, it looks not bad at all. A little bit in the middle, that's only about 30 degrees. Not too bad. A little warm bit there. What's that? About 34. That looks pretty reasonable. So that card looks okay. Right, I've got the monitor board in the extender card now. I've taken out the EEPROM just in case anything goes horribly wrong. It's a 1702 and I've got no way of reading or writing at the moment, just to be careful. Let's just pan down to the meters and then we'll power up and see what happens. Right, we're running 1.23 amps on the 5 volt. We're not going to see anything on the 12 because this one doesn't have a -12 rail. Sorry, +12. Let's just check it has got a -10 volt rail though, so let's just check the voltage on that. In there, and we do have -10 volts, so that's a good sign. Right, let's have a little scan of the board and see if anything's getting warm. Let's just bring the camera up. There we go. Right, see what we've got. It's fairly cool at the bottom. Little green spots there. It's about 30 degrees, it's not very much. At the top, looks pretty reasonable. Sweep down the other end. Looks okay. I think that's pretty reasonable. Okay, so that one's okay. We'll move on to the next card. Right, this one's the monitor module. Again, I've taken the EEPROM out. This will be the last of the 4 boards we need for a minimal system. Right, so let's give this one a bit of a test. I'll just move the camera down so we can see the meters. Right, there we go. Right, let's turn it on. Right, we're putting about 1.9 amps on the 5 volt. We won't see anything on the plus 12 because it's only got a plus 5 rail on this one. Right, let's. I think the typical is 2.13, so we're well within that. Let's pan up and have a look at the scan of the board. Make sure nothing's getting warm. Might be worth pointing out some of the little red blobs on the previous one were actually the overlay where the capacitors are, because they're a little bit of a light colour. The overlay seems to blow through a little bit. Alright, a bit warm up there. Looks like those USARTs at the top there are getting a little bit warm. What have we got? Not much though. And they're just warm in relation to the background temperature, I think. We'll work our way along here. Looks alright. Blob there. 27, 28, that doesn't look too bad. Yeah, I think that looks fine. Right, what I'll do is off camera I'll test the other boards that I've got, and then when I come back we'll plug all 4 boards in with the EEPROMs and the processor, and then we'll give it one final test. If everything's okay, then in the next video we can run it up and see what happens. Right, I've got all 4 boards in ready for our final test, so let's power it on and see what happens. Right, here we go. We've got about 5.8 amps on the 5 volt and about 210 milliamps on the 12, so that looks good. Right, so that'll do it for this one, and I shall see you next time.